So much. Well, it's and final panel. And I think Christian, you can
stay.
you can stay. Our next panel will be facilitated by Lars.
And
Roxana, yeah.
yes, the final panel session. Right. We are going to talk about ecosystem impact. And I should just mention, my name is Lars Davidson. I'm the head of the cultural department here in Aarhus, the municipality of Aarhus. And Christian has introduced himself, but I could perhaps start out when I was starting working at the cultural department. Institut for X wasn't actually situated in Aarhus for real, but you started at the freight yard, and when we started realizing the freight yard, and after when you were just handing over wasteland and buildings, and 3 years later, out of the blue, 100 companies or association has emerged from the area, and you can see that because in Denmark you need to register for tax paying, and there was actually over 100 numbers down at the Institute for X. So you can mention that you are part of physical manifestation of a cultural creative ecosystem. So just in short question, how have you managed that?
Really? Yeah. I hope maybe you can also give some points. I think it's. I think what happened was first of all an experiment. I think a lot of us here today was also speaking about this power of actually letting some experiment happen and then just to try it out. So in reality, there was no overall plan. There was not very many agreements. We had no written contract with the city for the first 7 years. But we had a dream, or like a sort of plan to let this big old freight train area be a sort of playground, experimental space where citizens, also companies, cultural associations could try things out. So it's basically a big physical place, and in the first many years we just let people loose. Sometimes things were happening in the corners that we had no ideas about as well. So it was a surprise to us too. Yeah.
And Roxana, can you, the broad European perspective, can you see any similarities to specific initiatives or projects across Europe that has worked out the same way? I was talking to Christian before he left. Leipzig has examples, I know, but from time to your palace, have you any good examples as well?
Hear me now? Yes. There's plenty of examples across the network, but maybe what would be the most irrelevant one would be the actual example of Trans-Europal. So our network has turned 40 this year. We were established in 1983. And it's a network that was born out of the squatters movement, out of activists that have sort of seen the potential in abandoned derelict buildings and thought, oh, these things are worth, a life, and we can do something with them. And it's taken us, decades of work and advocacy to actually now sort of be invited to policy dialogues and conversations about change, and it hasn't come easy. So I would say, yeah, this is the example. Like, change doesn't happen overnight, but you need to have the space to experiment, and you need to have the drive to keep at it, basically.
And taking the part of the history of the squatter movement, then how have you worked to ensure the integration between the cultural but also the creative sector in advancing those? Because it's the collaboration between the culture and the creative sector in the business part that is also relevant for this forum, I think.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's a long-term engagement, and I don't think it has been easy, at least not at the start. And of course, I wasn't even around when the network started, actually. I think it's about kind of looking at the positive impact that the cultural and creative sector and that these communities were able to have, and about promoting some of the really interesting, innovative practices that they've put in place. So, for example, one of our members in Berlin, Ufa Fabrik, have very bottom-up become so sustainable, so energy positive, and it was all kind of without the involvement of big companies or technological sectors. It was all made by hand before they got to the level where actually the municipality and other sectors have come in to ask them for dialogue. So it's about being perseverant, I think, and it's about showing the positive impact of your work. I don't know if that answers the question.
Sure. And question, just to make it here in a local context in Aarhus, has there been any challenge or the barriers for working together across the cultural and creative sector? Have you come across anyone, or is it just non-existent problem?
Interesting. So you say between the culture and the creative, because the creative is typically maybe more commercially driven.
Precisely.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons why we created our platform was to a little bit get out of that catch-22 of there being arts on the one side and then some sort of creative commercialization on the other. So in reality, we created some statutes and an association that included all of the different sectors in reality. So we have purely commercial partners or members, actually. We have arts and also civil society actors. So in our place, at least, we found some small solution in getting all of those different sectors in the same place, just because we said they are all welcome here. But definitely also going back in some of the places that we were before, it was much more difficult to bridge this little bit the difference between the two. And it's a little bit silly thing in reality, because it's all a bit connected when you think about arts and the production of arts, because you have all the bigger, you could say, ecosystem of let's say when you do an event or a concert, you have a larger ecosystem of services and other smaller companies that also actually feed into this. So I think recently we're working a lot on trying to understand the economic impacts, especially of this kind of experimental talent grassroots platform that we try to foster. Basically, not to make that exactly this barrier in reality between the two.
And what when we're talking about the role of governance, people like me sitting at the municipality or other people, what is the good advice for us? How can we make a good environment so that, well, that you can thrive? And we actually want, of course, we want a sustainable cultural and creative sector, where freelancers and permanently jobs can be created and stuff like that. Any good advices, both of you?
Maybe you want to start, Roxana?
Thank you. My advice would be just, be open to the dialogue and invite all sorts of people around the table. And, some of them might not look like your usual interlocutor, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have good ideas. So start from there, I would say.
Yes, more money on the table. That's actually not the point. It's actually, I think, not to give you guys too much what's it called, like too much good spotlight, but actually it's about, I think, being available for the larger, you could say, cultural creative sphere, like that the different initiatives, the different organizations in the city. I think it's also about on a policy level to really do a participatory design so that you actually figure out all the different stakeholders in your local environments or ecosystems, that they are in some ways included, especially in our policies. And I think it's also about having to create this kind of larger partnerships, because especially the cultural, you could say creative industries are better organized than the arts sector, I would say. In Aarhus, for instance, we have a bigger association or like an interest group that represents a lot of different artists, art organizations, anything from the theater in Aarhus to big museums, to places like the ones that I represent, the front runners or Institut for X. And we're a little bit all in this institutional mishmash interest group together. And it's a really important thing, I think, for a city to have an organized arts sector, because it's much more easy for you guys on the other side, for the city, to actually have some dialogue where we know that we are reaching out to the, as best as we can, the larger landscape of the arts sector. So that was a couple of.
And from the city and the municipality, we are very glad and pleased about what you're doing, President. And now I think all of you are perhaps, or some of you are going actually down to Institut for X in a couple of minutes. So just to sum up, question, what is the plan? What have you in mind for Institut for X? What are your goals? Yeah, not for the future.
Yes.
Yes.
We just finally, after 12 years, finished a vision, you could say, finally like on paper vision, which basically just says that we dream of urban, vibrant neighborhoods. That's the short version. And so we keep on working, not just with our own place. It's always been important for us that it's not just about our own location, but we work a lot with public space in many, many places. And for X, for the association now, is that we are building a large scale, like you could say, transformation project of the buildings. So we have some other Transeurope Halls members here also. It's about the heritage buildings and how to reappropriate them to a contemporary, you could say, creative, creative sector. And that's going to be a really interesting process. And I hope some of you guys will have the opportunity to follow the project as well. It has different stakeholders in it, but the main focus is basically participation. So it's not going to be a project where we have a huge buildings that we close off for 5 years, renovate and make very, very nice. It's going to be, we try to do radical participation in the sense that we want the locals, neighbors to be part of the planning, time planning, basically, of the architectural drawings, of the actual building. So we would like to try to do a project that takes participation to a new level. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
I think my time is up. There's a lot of ecosystem in practice visits tomorrow, I think. But Roxana, thank you very much for participating, and Christian as well. Give them a hand.